I'm Doug Ordunio, and I was a former announcer at radio station KFAC in Los Angeles. And I was also the FM programmer for the station for 13 years before the station was purchased by a group of investors that were headed up by Louise Heifetz. After that time, I left the employ of the station, and then I worked for 17 years as one of the chief programmers of classical music in a variety of formats for AEI In-Flight and DMX Music, who are the two major suppliers of audio programs for airlines. But how the Romantic Hours came about, I had been aware in the early 1970s that Mona Golubeck was a pianist who performed at times with orchestra and at times with her talented sister, the late Renee Golubeck, around Los Angeles. And I never met her at that time. It wasn't until 1989, and by that time I was just starting to work at AEI Music, and she had contacted me and asked me if I were interested in possibly producing a radio show. She told me the way she wanted to work the show, which is she would read love letters of famous people, poetry, and that needed to be combined with classical music. And I immediately told her that that would be an easy thing for me to do, because in my earlier career, before KFAC, when I worked at the radio station at Cal State Northridge, I was putting a show together every week called How About Fred? And that was a program that combined a variety of spoken texts with music, although the music was more wide open as far as styles were concerned. It wasn't just classical music. I thought that my chief purpose in putting this program together was to give people the type of classical music that they might expect to hear on a program of this nature. However, I was also going to be filtering in selections of music that weren't necessarily classical, but at first hearing, people would perhaps be confused and delighted by hearing something that they had never heard before, other than the standard repertoire of classical composers. I started off to do this program. This was at the time that the program was airing on K Mozart, I believe. Through Roy Lindau, a producer in New York, he had a network of radio stations, and he was selling the program to these other radio stations. And some of them were important classical radio stations around the country, including places like WQXR in New York and WFMT in Chicago. One radio station, which we have had for years playing the Romantic Hours, is WNED in Buffalo, New York. And they've been very faithful about producing the show. And in spite of the fact that I have about 300 programs as a backlog of shows, I can sort of mix and match and put them together in different ways. So it's always something that has a feeling of being new. So that is how it all started. And my interactions with Mona Golubeck were chiefly as the person who recorded her voice tracks and then edited them and then combined them and mixed them with all the music. So that was what my purpose was in the whole process. And it has been going on for 31 years, and a lot of people still listen to the show, and they enjoy it, and I'm very happy that they like it. I haven't decided to stop doing it yet, so if you're a listener to the Romantic Hours and you can hear one of the 8 stations that the show is on, if you think of it, if there's a classical station in your community that might benefit from, in terms of their programming, from playing this show, mention it to them. And, word will eventually trickle down to me or to Mona Golovic, and we'll take it from there. So that's the story of the Romantic Hours.